Here we have the finals between Voidlaws and Hadres. Voidlaws taking the yellow player slot and Hadres as the red. Now, there were some lag issues, which is why I am casting it from replay, but this should be good enough. Now, Hadres did go for, he did have a little bit of an army rule break too, with the double dragon in this current format. In the next format, there won't be any limits. It will more or less just be the ladder limit, so you can take 5 of each unit and 2 dragons if you want. But for now, for this tournament, this is how it shall be. Now, Voidlaws has gone for and I'll slow it down to actually cover these units. He has a Vampire of Death with Spirit Leech, Von Karstein Lord with Tempest, very good sniping duo squad in the air, some bats, and some zombies, actually a fairly cheap front line, but there we go, the more expensive Graveguard back line. Some Black Knights and Blood Knights too, so the cavalry advantage should be in the favor there for Voidlaws. And meanwhile for Hadres, it's an alternate air squad with a Manticore and a Black Dragon. Slash's Harvesters on the ground to Spirit Leech in the air. Marathi, good old Soul Stealer, and her item kit. And 4, count them, 4 Dark Rider Repeater Crossbows. Now the reason this matchup is bad for the counts is because the Dark Elves can give cover fire from the ground, where the counts have to rely primarily on melee. This unit of Doomfire Warlocks with its debuffs should be able to help too, and a single bolt thrower just to provide a little bit of pressure. Now immediately the vampire counts are advancing, and it looks like they're aiming to actually avoid quite a few of the air fights currently. Disengaging from the Harpies with the Fellbats, definitely a very nice play, as you don't want to be losing these guys for free. They do almost get caught, but they pull away before taking damage. Meanwhile, in the air, Marathi goes for the engagement against the Von Karstein Lord. And this is actually going to be a pretty even trade. Both of them going down to about half HP, but of course a lot of spells can drop. Now a Doombolt drops on the zombies, and I think that might have actually been a misclick from Hadres, healing on the Von Karstein Lord, but look at that. Stacked debuffs on top of him, Word of Pain, Soul Stealer, and he tries to counter with the Scroll of Shielding. It looks like that does help out quite a bit, but quite a few trades back and forth for sure. Meanwhile, the Tempest trades the Fellbats for the Harpies. Actually pretty even trade since 2 units of Fellbats died there, but killing off the Harpies definitely helps the vampire counts quite a bit. Meanwhile, the Von Karstein Lord does disengage, tries to fly to safety, as the Manticore rampages. Now, there is a big risk that it could dive in onto the Graveguard, which would obviously be a very bad situation. Nevertheless, it's still fighting the Vampire Caster of Death, and the Vampire Count's casters, aside from the Necromancers, are quite strong fighters. You can see she very easily takes down the Manticore here. I think she had an attack boost too for a quick second, and that will be routing off the battlefield. Meanwhile, Marathi still quite beat up. Although she does have Soul Stealers, you don't want to just spam them out for healing only. It's always much better to have a big blob that you can cast it on. So pretty unfortunate there. Meanwhile, on the left flank again, the Harpies do stall out the Vampire Caster of Death, thus rallying the Feral Manticore, but it routes off again on the left-hand side. Pretty unfortunate for Hadres. Can't get more value off of that, which means that the air dominance is slowly going into the favor of the vampire counts. Now, had it been 2 dragons, things could have been very different, but this is how the cookie crumbles. And we'll see if the air gets fully taken over by the vampire counts. Voidlaws already with a bit of a nice lead, a tiny bit of balance of power, and the ever so important air superiority. It seems like he will have longer endurance than the Dark Elves too, and that's obviously going to be a bit of a problem. Now these zombies, they do crumble away. Not really a huge gain on the Dark Elf side, but eventually you will want to pick off the Vampire Count's infantry. At the moment though, they are more or less just a wall for the Vampire Counts to use. Over here, Black Dragon getting hit by the Gaze of Nagash from the Necromancer on the ground. Gaze of Nagash, an extremely high damage spell. I'd say it's actually pretty underrated, but quite a few players do use it. disengaged too from the Von Karstein Lord to Tempest. Marathi also causing quite a few issues. And actually it does hit the Black Dragon too. It actually got to speed out of the Tempest because of its extra speed that it gets from its charge bonus. A little bit of an unknown thing. Your charge bonus can negate the effects of slows by quite a bit because the percentage gained is based on your base speed, not your current speed. So pretty good, but it still took quite a bit of damage. Marathi and the Black Dragon are quite beat up. The bolt thrower is shut down. I don't believe it got too much value, but at 39 kills, we'll check its value at the end of the game. And we've settled on a point where Hadres, he has been able to find a gap for his cavalry to disengage with a map this big. That's not too difficult. And he does still have a flying presence, now opting to start beating up the infantry of the vampire counts just to start wearing them away. If he does manage to clear out all of this infantry, it will be very rough for these flyers to get their value, since the repeater crossbows can just shut them down. But a nice pull-in from the Black Knights actually does shoo away and zone out the repeater crossbows, so they can't support the fight against the Von Karstein Lord. Very nice play there from Voidlaws, and actually making a pretty aggressive dive in now. It looks like he wants to take this fight because he has 3 units of cavalry. The Soul Stealer from the Slaanesha's Harvesters does drop right on top of the units of cavalry here, getting in quite a bit of damage. Looks like it's not taking out models, unfortunately for Hadres, but definitely gets in some pretty good damage. Actually, looks like that might have been the armor debuff spell, actually, from the Doomfire Warlocks. So, not getting a whole amount of damage, but there we go. There's a Soul Stealer coming in from Marathi now, going to be hitting up all of this cavalry. Should actually be able to pretty decisively either push them away or win this engagement. You can see the Black Knights already fall, and there are still these Dark Riders that are going to be quite a bit of a threat, pushing the Air Force away. However, the cavalry does still live, so their pressure is not gone yet, and that means that these repeater crossbows, they likely won't be able to pressure the air anytime soon as long as they stay away. Meanwhile, the infantry is still quite plentiful, and I'd be a little bit worried about ammunition on Hadres' side, but maybe not anymore, since the dragon actually gets caught by another Tempest in a 2v1 situation, getting routed off and actually killed before it can even come back. Definitely a pretty hefty loss. And on the side of Hadres, he does finally get some support from the Dark Riders, but the Knights come on in and get in some pretty nice damage on the Riders. They do push them away, and that means that Marathi is not getting the cover fire that she needs. A Zombie Summon 2 drops down as Voidlaws decides to press the advantage here, but now he has to dodge, and that means that Marathi gets a few free hits. A few shards do land on the Lord, but the zombies finally push away the Dark Riders, and Marathi has to disengage again. The air dominance looking like it is going in the favor of the vampire counts now. That's going to be a very bad sign for Hadres, since it means that the mobility advantage is completely lost. Slaanesha's Harvesters having a rough time on the ground too. Marathi hitting quite hard. She may have another Soul Stealer, but the army losses actually kicks in, and that's going to be game, which means that since we have changed this to a best of 3, the match is going to go to Voidlaws, who will be taking the tournament prize today, winning out a very rough matchup. Of course, there was a lot of shenanigans going on in the tournament, but very good play from both players. Very nice Dark Rider denials from the side of Voidlaws, and an interesting build that seemed to have worked quite well. The Dragon and the Manticore getting in a decent amount of damage, but not enough to really secure the air dominance here. Both are actually doing quite well for itself. It's for exposed artillery actually holding out quite long. But if you look at the value of the repeater crossbows, you can see they were mostly shut down for basically the whole game. Meanwhile, everything in the Vampire Count's army is more or less just there to stall, while these three guys get their value. And you can see here the Gaze of Nagash on the Necromancer. It can be a bit risky. You don't want to miss your Gaze of Nagash, but if you hit it, you can get a good amount over 1,000 gold value. So quite strong there. But the real champions here, you have the Flying Lord providing pressure, and the Von Karstein Lord with those insane tempests and combat fighting power, getting in almost 4,000 damage value. So that's the tournament. Sadly, we did have to split it up into 2 videos, but there you go. And Voidlaws will be, I think at this point he's already received his prize. But hope you guys enjoyed, and the next tournament is actually going to be hosted by Human Boy Yes. I'll have a video linking to his channel when that starts up.